I'm Vanessa Joy, and I'm going to give you a real-life hands-on review of the Canon EOS R. Here's the thing, you are not gonna come to this YouTube channel and have me read you a spec sheet. You can go read spec sheets anywhere, you can go watch other YouTube channels for that. That's not what I wanna give you. I wanna give you what it was like when this was in my hands, when I was actually shooting with it on a paid job, not some pretty styled shoot, which is great, but you know, you have a lot more control over those pretty styled shoots than you would over a real job. So I wanna give you a real life, not just hands-on, but real life, real paid job, and how I was using this. So that's what you're gonna get here. I recently had the chance to use this on my very own client shoot. I've used the Canon R before, but on different projects where it was more enclosed and having to show off for Adorama, a certain lens, or the lens Trinity that recently came out. But for the first time, I was able to use it on a real job on one of my own clients. The very first thing I will say is if you are switching from DSLR to mirrorless, my goodness, there absolutely is a learning curve. I really don't think you're gonna be able to pick up a mirrorless camera and just start shooting with it overall. That being said, I do think a lot of the buttons in the EOS R were very intuitive from just knowing the Canon 1DX Mark II and really a lot of the Canon cameras that I've used over time. Some things were intuitive and some things were not. I am not a huge fan of just the way you have to go change your ISO and your white balance. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but they're just those certain points I had to adjust to. Now, adjusting to the viewfinder, I did find pleasant. I don't actually like using the electronic viewfinder. However, I found that using the back of the camera, essentially the live view, and taking photos that way helped me engage with my clients just a little bit more. So especially, you know, we were working with a kid and she's only 2 or 3 years old, I believe. So having a camera interface usually isn't the best way to work with children. So I was able to just kind of have the camera almost off to the side a little bit and in the corner of my eye see my framing, and we'll get to the focusing in a second, and really interact with the child instead of interacting with my camera. So I did enjoy that part. But anyway, so it would be kind of more shooting like this, and out of the corner of my eye, I could see what was going on, but really able to engage with the client. And I think that will work for children or couples or whoever it is that you're photographing, just not having to talk like to the back of your camera and smile and peek out every once in a while is a benefit, because if you're photographing humans, you know that most of it is about psychology versus photography. Or maybe not most, but good line anyway, right? So you're thinking probably, okay, that's great, you have this here, but what about, you know, focusing? That is one thing I love about this camera, the EOS R, more than my DSLR. If you like what you see so far, make sure that you are clicking the link below to download my free branding guide. Truthfully, it's not a branding guide, it is my personal branding magazine that I give to colleagues to network with them and also to my clients, just to show them my value. You'll find a lot of good wording in there that you can hijack or find inspiration for your own marketing for your photography business. And of course, there's plenty of eye candy and inspiration in it as well. So be sure to grab yours. The focusing on this camera is just easy. It's easy. You have your thumb and it's customizable. You just have your thumb and you're just moving it around however you want it to focus. Or even if you have it up to you, you can still do that where you're just moving your thumb around. It's probably a better angle if you're moving your thumb around as you're viewing. So I could have the camera here and just kind of glance and tap a face or tap a face. And here's the greatest thing. Since the firmware update with the EOS R enhancing the autofocus, you really can just like tap on a face and it's gonna follow that face. So it's pretty cool. You almost don't have to pay attention to the focusing as much, and again, engage with your client. The other great thing is I'm able to shoot at much lower apertures than I typically would. Normally, I'm not going lower than 2.2, 2.5 on any given shoot, whether it's portraits or details, you know, at a wedding or anything like that, because I'm concerned about how accurate the focusing is. With this mirrorless body, I found the focusing to be super tack sharp. You know, even if I was just kind of holding it out and winging it, honestly, it really found the focus even at those lower apertures. It was just like a weight off my shoulders. I didn't have to think about the focusing as much, which, you know, when you're dealing with a 3-year-old, that's much easier, or anything that you're shooting is better to really, pay attention to what you're focusing on. All right, what else I want to talk to you about this camera. Oh, the lenses that I was using. I primarily use the 85 1.2 and the 50 1.2. I've also had the chance to use the 28 to 70 2.0 as well as the 15 to 35 2.8. The only lens I really haven't had a chance to use is that 70 to 200, the newest of the Trinity that came out. I haven't gotten my hands on that, though I've heard good things. So I really went through the range of all the different lenses and used the RF lenses with the mirrorless camera and just found them to be crazy crisp. I am normally a prime girl. All of my lenses are primes, and with my DSLR, I'm bringing my arsenal everywhere of all of my different lenses. But with this, I actually was pleasantly surprised at the 28 to 70. Granted, it is a 2.0 lens, but wonderfully surprised at how a zoom lens compared to the kind of crisp, beautiful look of a prime lens that I'm used to. I found them very comparable, so I would happily shoot with that lens more often. So anyway, this is a 28 to 70. It is kind of big. Let's just put it in comparison to the camera. Let's see, there you go. All right, it's pretty big, but it's a 2.0, and having that range, you know, 28 to 70 at 2.0 is pretty incredible. So normally I'm not taking advantage of any fast frames per second. I'm always on single shutter release instead of like the rapid fire one. But working with a kid, which is not, for the record, not something I'm used to doing. I typically don't photograph children at all, but I knew she's so adorable, isn't she? I wanted to be able to photograph her and photograph her well, and I was kind of nervous because it's outside of my wheelhouse. So I did take advantage of the higher frames per second on this camera and kind of did a little bit of rapid fire. One thing I would like to change is when I'm done with all that rapid fire is the playback, because the playback, when you're done taking a couple of shots, it sort of takes a second to be there and then go away, and you have to wait for it in order to be able to see the electronic viewfinder to take another shot, because it's not like with your DSLR, you're looking at it, you're taking the pictures here, and then you look at it, and then whenever you're ready to take a picture again, you just put it back to your eye and start shooting. So that's actually a custom function that I just hadn't set yet, where you can tell it, you know, if you want it to play back at all, when you want it to play back, you know, how long, and that kind of thing. So I had a little bit of trouble with that, but I know it's just a custom function. That's another great thing about this camera, is there are so many things that are customizable. They've got a customizable bar at the top, which again, I haven't set it yet. This is not my primary camera, but I'm still figuring out what I want to do with it. As well as some of the other buttons up here, you can decide what you want them to be. So you can really make this camera yours and almost fine tune it to your own muscle memory, what you have there. In addition to that, a lot of the lenses, they have this control ring on the end. And this is a pretty interesting feature where you can customize the control ring to really be whatever you want. Maybe it controls the ISO or the shutter, or maybe even the white balance, I think it will control. So you just have different things that you can do to make the camera easily usable without having to think, because that's our goal. Yes, there's going to be a learning curve when it comes to learning a new camera, especially if you're going from DSLR to mirrorless, but you want to eventually be in a spot where you don't have to think about your gear. That's the real goal. You want to concentrate on the shoot, concentrate on the person you're shooting or whatever it is that you're shooting, and not have to think about your gear. You just want to have the ability to change anything you want without thinking about it. I'm not sure what else I can say about this. Obviously the megapixels are good. No, there is not in-body stabilization, though I do hope, I'm pretty sure, I'm not pretty sure, no one's actually told me, I hope pro mirrorless cameras are coming out from Canon with not only the IBIS, but 2 card slots too. That would be nice. I'm not using this for weddings because of not having that immediate backup. And I'm sure the argument is always there, right? You know, oh, well, with film, you didn't have immediate backup, and that's great, but I don't want to go back to film days. I want to have immediate backup. Wi-Fi capabilities in this bad boy. And of course, you've got all of your ports that you normally have. All the typical stuff is there. So right now I'm using this for portrait sessions, photographing my family, photographing my kids, you know, basically everything but weddings. And I'm happy with it. I mean, the dynamic range is beautiful. The photos, when you're editing them, they're rich, they're gorgeous. And like I said, the crispness of them, because the advanced autofocus, that alone, hands down, is making my imagery better. Just not having to think about the focusing, but also nailing it much more frequently than I do with my DSLR. Not that I'm taking like blurry pictures with my DSLR, but I'm more careful because there's actually tech that has to do with, you know, the way that these lenses, you know, the light that comes in hits the sensor, it's actually more accurate on the autofocusing than with a DSLR, because that's technically coming in and hitting the mirror first and all these things. If you have the chance to pick up a mirrorless camera, definitely give the Canon EOS R a try. I think you'll have a little bit of a learning curve, but after that, it'll probably end up changing the way you shoot for the better. I'm Vanessa Joy. See you next time.